On another exciting episode of the Animation Deliberation podcast, we get the whole Todoroki family history. Um, it's a gut wrencher. We're going to talk about it right after these ads we have no control over.
Sing along if you know the words. 1, 2, 3, it's time for Animation Deliberation. A conversation and a celebration of our favorite action animated series. Yeah!
Yeah! Welcome back to another episode of Animation Deliberation, the podcast where we take action, animation, and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. We are your hosts. I am Zuhair Ali.
I'm J Scotty St. Clair.
And I am Andrew Rogers.
And as much as I love the Star Wars rendition on our Bad Batch coverage, man, you just got to come back to the classics.
Is that the best anime opener ever? That's the question right there. Is it our theme song?
Oh, do we need to have a Mount Rushmore of anime theme songs?
Ooh.
Or just theme songs.
Come
and knock on our door.
We actually did that on an episode of 323 with Reed Murphy. It was top 5 theme songs, but because I was representing Animation Deliberation, like I kept mine to anime only.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so diverse. Like there was 4 people on the show that day, and none of ours like hit. Like there was no repeats.
Oh.
It was pretty cool.
This sounds like a bonus episode at some point when we actually get free time that we just have to like go in on that.
Spoilers. Are you ready, kids? Aye, aye, Captain. I can't hear you.
Aye, aye, Captain. Yeah, that, Scooby-Doo, and Pokemon all showed up.
Okay, I figured as much.
Not for me.
Just complete while we're on this tangent, I will say SpongeBob had some of the best and most memorable songs of any TV show ever. So good.
I just have to ask, was it
campfire song?
Was it Scooby-Doo or was it What's New Scooby-Doo? Which one made the list? Both?
Yes. Even for Pokemon, it was like the first 3 songs were all such bangers. So you want to be a master of Pokemon? Do you have the skills to be number 1?
I think I could only do the original.
No, those original 3 were phenomenal. Well, tangent aside, we are here to talk about My Hero Academia. Season 6 is going on. It is a gut-wrencher, as Fabian and Chrissy have warned us. We had a lot of feedback from them. We covered it in the Bad Batch episode, Season 2, Episode 6. So if you want to hear their thoughts on Marvel, DC, Star Wars, and anime, check that episode out. We love the numbers, so if you guys could give us a hand and show all the episodes some love, even if you're here just for the anime, that'd be greatly appreciated. Anything that we need to talk about before we get to the synopsis, or do we want to just dive right in?
We covered a lot of news in the aforementioned Bad Batch episode, so I say we just dive right in. The water's warm.
It is warm, very warm. It is boiling warm from the Todoroki Flames. Season 6, Episode 17, The Wrong Way to Put Out a Fire. Take it away, Scoots.
All right. The Todorokis reminisce on their past history that led them to this moment. Inji and Rei discovered that while Toya possessed a fire quirk greater than his father's, he had his mother's constitution, making him resistant to ice, but weak to his own fire. In an attempt to protect him, Inji ceased all training with Toya, but when that refused to deter him, he decided to have more kids to make him lose his resolve. After Natsuo's birth, Shoto was born with the quirk combination Inji desired, to his joy and Toya's devastation. After an incident where Toya had a breakdown and nearly attacked Shoto, Inji banned all interaction between Shoto and the other siblings.
By the time he was 13, Toya continued to grow more emotionally distraught with the siblings and mother, while also training his quirk to the point his fire grew from red to blue. He wanted to show his father his progress, but upon the realization he had continued his training, a furious Enji took anger out on Rei. This reached her breaking point, resulting in the incident of Shoto's burning and her hospitalization, followed shortly after by Toya's supposed death, as his quirk went overload and burned the entire mountain down. In the present, Rei declares to Endeavor that he isn't the one suffering the most, and they all carry a small weight in Toya's downfall. so they will help deal with him together.
Hawks and Best Jeanist then arrive, telling Endeavor about the current state of the world and requesting a team-up to help solve their problems together. Hawks then asks him about One for All, as Endeavor's mention of it during the battle with Shigaraki has spread to the public, asking questions, leading him to tell them about Midoriya. Meanwhile, All Might continues to watch over Midoriya alone, knowing he is currently having a conversation with the predecessors of One for All.
I gotta say, I knew that we would be getting a little more background at some point. I didn't think we'd be having like a full-fledged episode like this.
I wasn't prepared for it, but I kind of love it.
I loved every bit of it.
I was about to say, it was deep, it was emotional, but it was such an interesting layered story to see how we had the sprinkled nuggets of like each individual event that it touched on, but getting all of the other surrounding information just put it in such a different picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this felt like a soap opera, but in the best ways. Like, I really felt connected to the Todoroki family, and I just really enjoyed how emotional and resonant it was. Like, it started off feeling like the family members were being very punitive towards Endeavor, but as each one of them shared a little bit and like owned their own part in Toya's transformation to Dabi, it became very, very uplifting and empowering. And I just have a whole new respect for that entire family. And Endeavor, it's been really interesting seeing him go from this character that I really had a strong distaste for, and for good reason, but to see how nuanced he actually is. And while his motivations were not always the best, and he was not always the best father, Toya's transformation was not, we were led to believe it was because he overtrained him. And while he did light this fire, as Toya said, it was kind of out of his control at that point. And so on that level, I really felt for him as a father.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you don't necessarily condone the behavior, but even though they both went into this knowing that it was a quirk marriage, like, he cared for his kids. Like, it wasn't that it was all about getting the right result. He did care about his kids. He did want them to succeed and be healthy and this and that. But the trauma of having to watch his oldest son hurt himself the way that he did is kind of what got him to focus on being the hero.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, because he was kind of running away from the problem at hand and running away from the family, resulted him in actually doing stuff that physically and emotionally hurt their family.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where it's like, you understand the steps that were taken, and it is coming back to bite him. You just kind of wish it could have gone different for that family, especially watching Ray talk about how much Shoto saved them, like, despite his personality and despite like how we saw him at the beginning of the show. You know, TJ kind of talked about like the growth of everything, like for him to grow and develop this much, to like do what he can to bring this family back together and stop his older brother as a family was really, really powerful.
Yeah, talk about a complicated hero, especially when you talk about us as a fan. Like, how do I root for this character anymore is very, very much an up in the air question. And now it's just, like you said, it's being unraveled. You feel for everything this family's coming to, but how they ever get over this, insurmountable hurdle is going to be a very interesting piece of it. And like, yeah, it makes sense, but it doesn't. Because like, yeah, he was trying to protect his kids, but he also put them in that position. So it just continues to spring back and forth. Why didn't the mother, protect? Because she couldn't do anything else. That leads to Endeavor, putting hands on her, which is the most, heinous action of everything that he does throughout this episode. That was the moment I was like, I don't know if I can root for Endeavor anymore. Like, that was the full breaking point, was actually like hearing and seeing that happen. So there's just so much going on at this point that I get, like we said, we were warned it was going to be dark, but I don't know if I was prepared for it to go this deep down the rabbit hole. And now you have Dobby crying blood on the other side of this coin, and we still have the question of how he got to be where he is, and now what they actually think they're going to do to stop him as well. It's just going to keep hammering home.
Yeah, and like mentioning the unraveling, like one thing that stuck out to me is that we get a entirely new context to this whole situation with Rey and the accident she had with Shoto, and like having suffered the verbal and physical abuse at Endeavor's hand, to where it doesn't matter who she's looking at when she sees those eyes, whether they're in anguish or anger, like they just elicit this reaction in her. Was like really, really powerful stuff. But and we talk about feeling for every single member of this family, but yeah, Toya Dobby is not excluded from this. Like seeing how he wrestled and questioned the reason that he exists, and that part where he lashed out at his mother and said, you're complicit in my birth and my creation, and the whole reason that I exist, trying to create this perfect melding of quirks, and now that I can't live up to that, like what am I supposed to do? I can't go make friends at school, like everybody's talking about being a hero, and just seeing the turmoil there was really, really tough. But yeah, it's surprising to say, like I was endeared to Endeavor in new ways, but I was also endeared to Toya and Dobby in new ways in this episode. So just incredible character work.
Yeah, because when we first saw like the reveal of like who he was in this and that, it kind of sat in my head of like, if you were alive and this was an accident, why didn't you go back to your family?
Mm-hmm.
Like where was it that you were just, out in the woods practicing, and then like you just left and became a villain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was very powerful to see it just kind of like, it's like, oh, my dad doesn't care, he didn't show up, like I am this because this is what he wanted me to be, and then just out of spite, obviously he loses control of his power for a little bit, but after feeling that level of pain too, like it all comes back to like, this is his fault, I hate him. It's still weird calling him NG instead of Endeavor. Like, I forget he has a name.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really just all he wanted to do was make his dad proud. Did he take it a step too far? For sure. Putting yourself in harm's way is not going to be the answer, and going, that level of, you could see the crazy Dobby eyes even when he was only, 12 and 13. So it was all there, and it was just really the straw that broke the camel's back in a way, especially, understanding how great his power could turn out to be, that he would just completely lose control of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a totally different perspective, because I agree. You would think he would go back to his family, but seeing how broken they were was definitely a piece of that it's like, okay, I guess you wouldn't, and I guess you would want to, plot this revenge, especially seeing essentially your father live your dream, having him be raised to, okay, you're going to surpass All Might, you're going to become the number one hero, to have Endeavor do that before he can. That only has to, screw it, pun intended, add flame to the fire. Because it's only going to get worse from there as that starts to, descend into the madness further.
Yeah, there's a lot of relatability with this as well, because like, me and my parents are from Pakistan, so it was a pretty cultural household. Like I was kind of like that middle of like the Pakistani household and like understanding American culture and finding like that balance between them. But my dad always had like that cultural mindset of having to go to work every day. He was home like after I already went to bed. And my mom was the one that was like invested in everything I was doing. And I didn't do great in school. Like grades were not my strong suit. So whenever I would, do bad in school or get her do something, it was always like, why did you let that happen? Why did you let him do this? Why did you let the kids do that? As opposed to like communicating with me and understanding my hobbies and my interests and my schoolwork and my growth and this and that. And it still is that way. Like he'll try to talk and it'll just kind of be like, dude, it's going in one ear and out the other. Like I'm explaining as a formality at this point. Like I understand that you don't get it. Whereas my mom is like super invested and actually like keeps track of it. So it's like, that's why when I say it's like, I understand, but I don't condone. It's like, you see, Scoots, you and I talked about last week about so many similarities with real world issues. So seeing that like really hit home of just kind of like, oh yeah, I get it. This makes total sense.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up, and I find it like kind of similar, but not the same with the cultural difference there. But yeah, I think I found this struggle between a father and son so relatable as well, because like a little bit about me, like I'm a junior. I was actually born on the same day as my dad. We have the same birthday, so there's always been this notion of like kind of living in my dad's shadow, and he's mellowed out as he's gotten older, and we have a good relationship, and I've forged my own identity a little bit more so. But growing up, there was like this high expectation and this like standard to live up to be my father's son. And I remember bringing home a report card one time, and I got all A's except for one B in math. Math has always been my like weakest subject. And I remember his response was, "You couldn't have made that one B and A, huh?" And like how that just like crushed me. And it's like, I did so good, and it's just this one area. And so it's a B. It's not even that bad. But yeah. So yeah, it's kind of a tale as old as time. You know, sons and fathers, and the inherent struggle that is there. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up and kind of like giving me the realization of why maybe it tugged at my heartstrings as much as it did.
Yeah, and I think also at the end of the day, we talk about father and son, but also, you know, the sibling situation, the way that as soon as the other siblings were born, you know, having to deal with suddenly not being the center of attention. Like I, you know, remember misbehaving myself when my younger sister was born. Like, hey, I'm over here. Why aren't you paying attention to me? It's like, no, there are other priorities. So I could only imagine how exacerbated those things must get the minute that not only is the new child, you know, a part of the family, but the new child is the favorite. The new child is what, you know, you wanted to be, because always making sure that, you know, my grandparents didn't compare me to my sister. We were two different people was like the biggest thing that like my parents tried to do growing up, because the minute that you put that pressure on a child to live up to some crazy expectation that another child has set, it's just only going to cause turmoil, only going to cause, you know, divides between the siblings, between the family. So yeah, I could only imagine, even if Toya was, you know, didn't turn into Dabi, what would his relationship with Shoto have even been? You know, how disjointed would it have been? Would it have looked like his, you know, the way Shoto interacts with his other siblings at this point? That, you know, it's not a good relationship because he was the favorite, because he was put through entirely different treatment than they were. Even if Toya had stayed around, I can't imagine it would have been a good thing.
Two other things that made me cringe was the way that Angie reacted when the doctor said that this is taboo. When he was talking about like the designer baby, and the look that he gave Ray after the third kid, after Natsu was born, the way that he just side-eyed her, and it was like, you know how babies are born. So you can only imagine what she had to go through, like, with that rage and determination. Like, dude, that was scary. Like,
it was.
Thinking about, like, what she had to go through it, like, right after that point. Like, no wonder she was hospitalized. Like, that has got to be beyond traumatizing. Like, her standing in front of him after thinking about that is so much more baffling that she had the courage to do it. Holy crap. I was not feeling right when I saw that look, and I was like, oh no, I know what's about to go down. No.
Yeah, he looked more monstrous and villainous than some of our primary antagonists that we've had in the show so far. It was really
not comfortable.
Unsettling, yeah.
But on a bright side of things, how did you guys feel about seeing Hawks' like feathers starting to come back and something like engaging his back?
Oh yeah, the minute that his jacket just started to bulge underneath as he's like, okay, we got to get the fight going. Like that was just him flexing all the muscles. It was like, okay, let's do this, you know, having that confirmation that his wings do indeed grow back after fire. was definitely a good note. I can't take the text to talk seriously, though.
I don't think we're supposed to. They always do the one thing that just kind of lightens the load a little bit, and that was it. Just a quick
tap, 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 tap,
tap, tap, tap, tap, tap.
Well, not only that, but then like the interactions with Bakugo again, he's still kind of doing the same thing he's been doing the last couple of episodes, but it's nice to get a little bit of levity there, and even the exchange with like Best Jean is still calling him by his like
full name.
Yeah.
Murder
God. Yeah.
Did you see the way Froppy looked, though? She was so fed up with Bakugo. She was just like, are you serious right now that I have to be holding on to this? And they were like, thanks, Froppy, you did it for us. She was just like, why?
She's so done. They have to work in shifts and just restraining him. I do love the transition work that they've been doing with this, because first it was like the overall picture of what's happening, and then they ended the episode on Endeavor, knowing that we were going to talk about that a little bit, and now they like literally moved down the hall down to Midoriya. All Might gave the little snippet of like what we should be expecting next week, and like we're moving into that story. So instead of like hopping back and forth between them so much, I like that each one is getting their own fraction of time, and it feels natural, and it's all quality. Like we're loving every bit of it, and then it's like, all right, we're letting you know we finished up with this one. Here's what's going on in the next bit.
Yeah, and I also like the tease, because I was kind of concerned at the start of this back half of the season when they're like, oh, he hasn't woken up yet, that it was going to be, we've seen the story a dozen times where they're all like, oh no, is the hero going to come back? What's going to happen? It's like, he's the main character. Of course he's waking up from the coma. To have this confirmation of, oh, there's a reason. He's talking to the previous One for All users. So he's probably going through some big deal thing, and then he's going to wake up with some new mindset, some way that he has to, figure this out. It's going to be a big Avatar state thing, presumably. I'm assuming Zuhair has like watched the preview for the next episode the way that he's looking at me. Oh,
it's knowing the name of the arc.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know a little bit of what's to come.
I don't know if you listened to last week's episode, because I gave a warning. It's like, hey, if you don't want to know, like, hit that skip button now. But knowing the name of the arc and stuff that Fabian said in his feedback email, which we covered on Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 6, so make sure you give that a listen. I don't feel like Midoriya is going to come out of this with an optimistic mindset. I feel like this is going to be very difficult conversations that is going to be going on with the Vestiges.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's going to be easy. I'm curious who is going to be on what side of those conversations, because we haven't gotten to know really any of the characters besides Nana Shimura, and even that, like, she might be like, screw it, let's go for revenge. So I'm really hoping that we get more of these characters, that we get to dig into them, understand their motives, and understand, what their path to being a hero was like, and see how that molds what's going to happen. Because I love that All Might's alive, but I wish All Might could be a part of that conversation.
Well, I thought it was interesting that he was saying like he could feel himself as a previous user, like within Midoriya. Like that's really interesting to me, and I want to see how that plays out.
Yeah. I want to see him with the rest of them.
Yeah, same here.
But like his buffed up version is like inside.
It is. And the only reason I don't think we're necessarily going to get that was his previous comments that he's made of like, oh, I've never talked to the other users. That's new. So I'm not necessarily confident that this is going to be his moment that he becomes a part of the conversation.
I don't expect him to be, but I would love it if he is.
Oh, yes, agreed.
There's just that monument with the sign that says, I'm not here. Just off in the distance. Sorry, it was there. I had to. It was in poor taste. I'm sorry.
I don't like
it. Yeah.
That scene hurt me.
I'm sorry. Gallows humor. It's how I cope.
It hurt me right here.
Right.
Where did he hurt you? Where did he hurt you?
Right there.
Show us on this doll. Where?
Right on the Nightwing logo. That hurt my shoulder a little bit.
Careful. Okay. Any other thoughts, expectations, predictions we need to get out there? I think I've said my piece on this episode. It can't be understated, the emotional toll of this one. It was really a standout episode in terms of just really delivering that drama. And it's not to spoil the Bad Batch episode too much, but this is kind of like filled in what I was looking for in terms of like a really rich character story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. My only last thoughts are, I'm excited for this character story. I want to see how this action unfolds, though, and I'm very, very anxious to. Now that we've had this tease of, okay, well, civilians are taking up arms and heroes are quitting left and right, like the fact that we only have the top 3 saying, hey, we're going to band together and do this, like, we don't need more. Shouldn't there be more manpower involved? And like, how many of these villains are we going to be able to take down? Like that kind of nonsense. I am dropping things. I'm so anxious about what's going to happen here.
I'm Bat Deku.
I'm Bat Deku. Yeah, it's. I
I'm
want
Bat Kugo.
Yeah, it's all that and more. And yeah, just. It's what these heroes have to do. And my one thing, since I wasn't on last week to talk about, I want more of the washing machine hero. That's my one wish.
Oh yeah,
we got to see them do things, and me and my friend Jillian have just been like, what is the washing machine hero? What is their power? And the fact that we haven't seen their power, give us more of that. Give us more of the quirks and all these other things on that light note of like...
She uses Bubble Beam.
Yeah, use Bubble Beam as our...
versus Stain removing powers. Make it happen.
That's it.
That was perfect.
We've peaked. The show can end here after 150 some odd episodes. We're done. We're never going to say anything funnier than that right there.
That's funny.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, but they've been good about the comedic relief and, some great lines out of it. Endeavor and everyone.
I really want to see an ad for that now. Like, there's got to be some, like, Japanese detergent company that's got to be using that. Have you guys seen the plane that has the Demon Slayer art on the side? And when they're landing, it's the voice actors like, Nezuko, get ready for landing. And, Inosuke's, like, flipping out in the plane and all that stuff.
Yeah.
See that? Next time I see it on Reels, I'll send it to you. It was awesome. Cool. But my quick final thoughts is my prediction is that we're going to have 2, maybe 3 more episodes of character development before we get back into dealing with the villains and action-related stuff. Because it's like, we still haven't talked about the fact that, like, these are students in a school. Is school still commencing? Like, is the sidekick and business side of things still going? Are they missing classes right now? Like, how do you go back into the day-to-day life of being a student after dealing with all this? I don't think this was a summer break adventure.
Well, right. I mean, at this point, one of their teachers is dead. One of their teachers has no leg and no eye. The rest of the teachers are all huddled around them, making sure they're okay. We don't even know who some of the other teachers are, so I'm going to guess that there's no school going on right now. That's just that's a hunch, but I agree. I don't know how you get back.
For hero courses, so there could still be like...
Yeah, the business school is just still sitting there like, man, we had to go to class today while everybody else is out doing things.
Why don't we get a snow day? The snow of your comrade's blood.
Jeez, dude.
Alrighty, well, glad that we could have some laughs in this pretty emotionally heavy episode once again. So, anything we need to let the listeners know about before we get out of here?
If we don't take action too seriously. Nah, I'm good.
Nah.
All right. Well, thanks as always for tuning in. That's TOONIN.
B plus Ultra, and as always, stay whelmed.
Shoto! And muscle.
Thank you for listening to the Animation Deliberation Podcast, a proud member of the Stranded Panda Network. If you would like to contact us, you can email animationdeliberationpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @animationdelib1. For this and other great shows, you can visit strandedpanda.com or join the great community that is the Stranded Panda Chat Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/svchat. Tune in next time, and remember, stay whelmed.